Okay, yes, it's all happening right now, today, as we speak. All the events that we've been afraid of for all this time are happening right now. And it's not clickbait. I'm going to prove it to you. Now, first off, obviously, we have an interesting war going on that's not like any past war. And although we might logically know this, it's entirely different when you see it in action. Meaning you have to actually take a step back and really have things out on a wall and put it all together and see it from a distance, to see how the coordinated attacks that seem isolated are all wound together and influence each other. They don't seem to, but they do. If you took someone in the future and they looked back historically at this time, it would become really obvious what things were connected and what weren't. But right now, in the thick of it, we can't see that. We get little clues, and so it's like, oh, wow, look at that. Oh, that. But some of these aren't clues. They're just distractions. Some of it's real, and some of it isn't. And it's just this interplay of all the different elements. And it takes more than one person to put it all together. And that's why I think various people online, when they stick together, not in warring with each other on what's right and what's wrong, but actually comparing notes and then just going back and forth and boiling things down. No one person can see this. This is vast and huge. And that's why I think it's important to take elements from different people, despite their seeming to be very different. There can be common elements that bring them all together. For example, this is what's happening today, right now.
The West, the Atlantique, was affected by this the most seriously, as was the North and the East. And what we know is some cables, basically clusters of cables, were doused with fuel and then set on fire. They were able to thwart the fourth attack as some members of the train, security and also workers, they saw something going on and able to scare people away. But on those other three lines, major disruptions, cancellations, delays.
And yet, a day before this, Jason Breshears of Archaix actually comes out with this prediction.
For 18 months, I've been telling you guys on my channel, and I've provided the links in the past couple of days to all my predictions videos that cover these, that we're expecting the exact same type of violence, but on a much greater scale, either during or just after the Olympics, and starting in France and spreading to Germany, the UK, and the United States. This is a perfect isometric projection, with 1972 terrorist attack being the isometric epicenter. Counting 52 years in the past was when the Olympics officially began in their modern version from 1920, representing the League of Nations, when the Olympics involved almost all, was no longer telling countries they couldn't participate. It wasn't just select countries. 1920 was also when the official Olympic flag came, was debuted. 52 years later is tomorrow. Tomorrow begins the opening ceremonies for the Olympics. They'll carry on for weeks.
A quick side note, I'm going to have clips from people who might disagree with each other, like Jason Breshears of Archaix and Billy Carson. I'm not going to agree with everything that either of these people might say, but I'm going to have different clips that I'm going to pull together because I see where clues are being shown right and left from different people that may disagree. And that's by design. They want us to be separated. This person's obviously a shill and this one is not. The thing of it is, even if they are like part of the opposition, they're still going to give us clues, real information, real truths. It's up to us to discern that. And that's part of what's happening. Like with Jason Breshears of Archaix, he's taken a huge amount of data. And this one video he did just yesterday is really good at showing all at once how all this comes together from a longer view of time. And it's really interesting. So the Olympics is something that he's actually highlighting right now, and it's happening right now. What we've seen more recently with the attempted assassination of Trump, that moves things around considerably in the energy dynamics. But it's still the world stage, meaning you have no direct control over all these different events. For my part, I feel like it's really important to look at the stage dynamics versus your own dynamics. There are certain people who can actually escape all that's going on around them. And I think it's important for each of us to do just that. And it can be done by mixing the mundane with the woo-woo. And I know I might lose some of you here, but I think it's really important to realize that we are much more than we've been told. Our energy and attention is being hijacked on a regular basis so that they can have the outcomes they want. They're using your energy for that. In my mind, more recently, I realized that we need to play jazz with our lives, meaning we need to be unpredictable, not even be able to predict what we ourselves are going to do at times, to break pattern from the usual routine and do things way outside the normalcy of it all. And that's the way we can actually confuse things. We can use our intuition, use our imagination. These are things AI or whatever else is under this control is under the illusion of a straight line of thinking. And we need to be squiggly. We need to be creative. We need to play jazz with our lives. We need to be creative with what we do. And when we do this, that's when we break out of the spell and start to make connections we wouldn't otherwise. And in that sense, we can actually escape all the chaos. The chaos may happen around us. We can't control whether the chaos happens around us, but we can change the dynamic of how we move through that chaos. And that's the important part. And I don't think it's one of those things where you can just build a bunker and that's how you hide out. And maybe some people will be able to do that. But I think for the most part, it's going to take community. And if it doesn't, and if you don't have community or any of that, that's okay. I believe that in the imagination, intuition, and following energy dynamics that are outside of the normal bias, we can actually, as individuals, move through the chaos without being harmed and move on with our lives joyfully, creatively. And so what happens each day influences what happens next, and what happens next, and what happens next. It's not all just one thing, and that's it. It's like, okay, we actually have much more control over our lives and what happens altogether than they want us to believe. They want us to believe that they are under total control, that there's nothing we can do, and the outcome is already decided. And I'm suggesting to you that's the exact opposite. All of the stuff they tried to do, they flip it on its head. And comes the truth for us. What have they told us over and over again? All these different controllers, the CIA, all these different elements, they control everything. They decide the outcome. They are in control. It's all being staged and we have no part in it. Flip that on its head. By tapping into our consciousness, by tapping into our imagination, our intuition, and our deeper selves of who we are, connected to a field, we can actually make a huge difference, especially altogether. But even if we didn't, altogether, it can still be done. But they'll still do things. Jason Breshears talks about how some of the areas which we have considered safe are going to definitely come under attack. And what will that
peace from the earth involves warfare on a urban scale, where militaries aren't involved. There are no armored columns and SR-71s and B-52 bombers. That's not what's being described here. What's being described here are people who ordinarily believe that they're protected from other things that go on in the world, that the rest of the world suffers quite regularly, are suddenly surprised when peace is taken from the earth. Do not be surprised when nice, lavish, walled, completely fenced in with security suburban neighborhoods come up under assault. The fifth columnists are already here. We've been talking about it for 2 years on YouTube. The migrant armies, the fifth columns, all these soldiers that are brought to these Western nations like the UK, Ireland, England, Wales. Yeah, they've been seen everywhere. In barges, offshore, filling up hotels, filling up the streets. Hell, even in America, street gangs have openly had conflicts with hordes of migrants that are just hanging around.
And what will that do? That will disrupt our sense of country and turn it into chaos. And that's the chaos they want. They want fear. They want chaos. They want you to think that it's all lost, that there's no hope whatsoever. They want you to think they're Darth Vader and totally under control. And they want you to think that you're not going to be able to get the plans in time. You're not going to be able to go up against the fortress. And yet in Star Wars, what did he do? He turned away from the computer that aided him, and he relied upon his own connection to the Force. And then he was able to meet the target. And that's where we're at right now. We are up against this huge force, and it has decided that it's under control. And you believe it too. With all the machinations, with all of what you can see, it seems like you will not make it. Like the chances of hitting this small little target are it just can't be done, especially with a computer-aided thing. But when you step outside of all that, that's when you hit the impossible. And that's what we're working with right now. Each of us has to get inside our own beingness, our own source and divinity, so that we can do the impossible. And that only comes from trusting ourselves. Again, trusting our source, our intuition, our imagination, and moving away from the machinations that are all around us. But it takes breaking pattern. It takes breaking out of the usual constructs of things, the usual routines, and doing things differently. That's what it takes. It takes being joyful when you should be sad. It's being sad when you should be joyful. Totally being embarrassed by dancing in the street and doing it anyway. It's breaking pattern from all that's around us, because everybody's in lockstep, marching. Everybody has their marching orders. And what happens when you march in step? You automatically just follow what's around you, follow the rules. So by breaking pattern all the time, you are actually using that muscle, that part of yourself that can break pattern when it's becomes even more important than dancing in the street when people shouldn't be dancing, right? It becomes that you are training your mind. You're training your muscle to do that, even when it seems like you shouldn't. You'd be totally embarrassed, all the other stuff. You know, it's filming in public when you feel like a total idiot and fool, right? It's doing those things. And then when those choices come, where it's like, you're going to make this choice because everybody else is doing it, you will be able to see, because you've been following your intuition and building that muscle, you'll be able to see beyond that. And in that moment, I don't know what decision it might be. We don't know what's going to happen next necessarily, right? But that decision will come. You'll be able to see through it because you've gained the clarity and the ongoing use of that muscle, and you'll make the choice different from everybody else around you. And it'll just be that moment. We are free from the smaller moments and decisions we make in our lives from day to day. And the more we tune our muscles to our truest side, our truest potential, our heart, our soul, our divinity, the more we train ourselves from making decisions from that place. That's when we are free. It's not any one big moment of freedom. It's the ongoing decisions that we make, moment by moment by moment by moment. The truth is not going to go viral on YouTube. It's just not. The truth is going to go viral inside of you when you listen to that, not from listening to any videos. YouTube's not going to let you speak the truth. You know, it's going to do what it does best. And although you'll get kernels of truth, there might be videos that take off here and there and have kernels of truth, because the lie does best when kernels of truth are woven within it. They're going to allow a little bit of truth in, but it's going to be drowned out by the lies. And you're going to believe the lies unless you strengthen your muscles, unless you strengthen your spirit. Quick side note, if you've been enjoying these videos, I'm turning ads off on them. And every once in a while, if you just look at the link below and buy me a coffee, it would be great. Make all the difference in the world, trust me. And if you don't want to do that, then I have my Patreon. You can actually join on a regular basis, and I've got different systems that allow you to create pockets of freedom online. It's not about information. It's about transformation through simple systems. So check that out, the link below. Now, it shouldn't come as any surprise that this all comes right before we're going to have an interesting change in power dynamics in a certain time of the end of the year, right? And you're not going to be able to talk about that truthfully. And that's why it's particularly important to open up to the field, to your intuition, to seeing things outside of the norm, so that you actually catch patterns that happen here and there. You're actually going to be able to make connections you wouldn't otherwise. If you're just connected into what's going on the physical level, you're going to miss a whole other realm of possibility, both from understanding what's going on, but also for the magic in your life. Now, I'm not here to convince you of anything. You have your own journey, as do I, as do everybody on this planet. So it's up to you to make those connections yourself. I'm just here to say, take a look, start to make connections, put a wall up and start to make connections from the past and from predictions of the future and how you feel when you eat certain things, when you listen to certain things. Start to make connections in your own energetics. And I think you'll find interesting things from your own experience, not from what other people tell you, but from your own direct experience. And that's really important, because the real truth is from grounding in spirit, from grounding in yourself, from grounding in source, and from knowing who you really are and what you really want in this life. Not what other people told you what they want, not to do all this stuff, but to actually ground yourself in what and who you really are. It's important to do this so that you're not hijacked by the constant fear that is like in music. It's all designed to get you to just be in lockstep. And you really have to march to a different drum, your own drum, to different music, and that's where breaking pattern comes into play, because all of a sudden I found myself in lockstep with different ideas. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? I'm not seeing the alternatives here. And then I break pattern and I suddenly see it again. It's so easy to get sucked back in. So easy. Our energy gets hijacked all the time. And so it's so important to really, really do this on a daily basis, on a regular basis, to break pattern and break from all of it, because you won't know when you're sucked back in. You won't know. And you may make decisions and be like, whoa, what happened? It's like driving. You're suddenly in a spot. You're like, what did I just do? It's the automatic thing that goes on in life. And so it's important to pay attention to that. And in that sense, make decisions that are clearly more aligned with our own divinity. Now, I'm going to say all that, but it's all for entertainment purposes. None of it could be true, and I could be totally wrong. Everything that what you see in the physical world might be just what's going on, and we are totally doomed. But I'll ask you this one question, and that is, even if that were the case, would you not want to spend your last moments of life in love and appreciation for what's around you and enjoy than cowering fear in the corner? So if you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a like. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe. I got a lot more coming. See you then.